I had an awesome adventure planned, around the world trip. I had contacted someone and arranged a business deal where I would run the marketing program for a jungle tour company in Laos, in Asia. And I wanted to do more. I wanted stops in Europe, stops in Africa, stops in the Middle East, and some other stops in Asia. And so I started to arrange these, and I knew someone from the college I worked at, Baker College in Muskegon, Michigan, that was from Kenya. So I asked him if he had any family in that area that I could potentially stay with. Now, it worked out great because I had been micro-lending money online to people in Kenya at 0% interest so they could get some business stuff going. And I thought that would be a very, very interesting thing to set up in Laos as well, because Laos didn't have that program, but this program was already operating in something like 7 to 9 countries. So I contacted the CEO of that company and arranged to do an internship. And now I had a place to stay with a connection, and I had an internship for a month in micro-lending, and then I would take that information and hopefully apply it in Laos. The only problem was that Laos apparently doesn't have the infrastructure to set it up in the first place, so a week before I was going to leave, the CEO canceled the internship. It's fine, I already have all my flights set up, everything set up, so I decided to go anyways. And Africa didn't go like I expected. Went a little sideways. I ended up being poisoned. I ended up having money stolen. I ended up getting sick with some sort of bacteria. I was vomiting blood. I was hallucinating. I got locked inside of a room from the outside, told I was going to die, and left for dead. Was saying goodbye to my mother over text, and then she called. She threatened some people. Some people came back and got me. We did some other stuff. Eventually, I got out of Africa. It was a crazy adventure. I have a lot of crazy stories about that week. It was a very expensive week as well. And when I get back to the United States, my dad and I went to the hospital the next day, which only makes sense. I went in there and said, I've been sick in East Africa, and this is December of 2015. The woman at the front desk is so scared, she jumps. I mean, I think she got some height. And she threw a mask at me, quarantined me in a room. The nurse came in and asked me if it was a respiratory thing or if it was digestive. It was digestive, so they did let me out just within a few minutes. But it was a weird few minutes being in there. It scared me a little more. And the doctor he told us he had no idea what he was doing. He called someone to ask what to do, what tests to run. And then we find out they ran the wrong test. They put me through one antibiotic treatment, which did not work, another antibiotic treatment, which did not work, and then I did a unique third antibiotic treatment over 3 months, which did work. So this is 6 months into being back from Africa, and I've just killed off the bad bacteria. Eventually, they did run the right tests, but it was after I was already about a month or so into the third antibiotic treatment, and the specialist said that there was nothing left in my blood. I had already killed it off. The thing is, I didn't get better. And it was very frustrating because I've been sick before, I've been injured before, and you always think, all right, I'm going to be better in a week, 2 weeks, I'll be better in a month. That's a long time to be sick. I'll be better in a couple of months. That's a long time to be sick. And then once you start getting, you've been sick for 6 months, you've been sick for 12 months, it seems to be a bit outrageous, kind of insane, hard to believe a little bit. And I was having major issues. I was very sensitive to light. I was very sensitive to sound. I was having short-term memory issues. Serious short-term memory issues. I started tracking with memory tests how much my memory was going down. And I went to a friend that's a chiropractor and said, something is wrong. You know, I've had a headache for like 6 months. It hasn't gone away a single time. My heart rate was through the roof. In the end, my heart rate stayed at about 100 beats per minute or more. Stayed at least 100 beats per minute for about 2 years. So stuff was way off. At one point, I laid in a bed in the dark with almost no sound, almost no light for about 2 months, expecting to get better, and I did not. And my friend, he's going to shoot x-rays, and I've had about a dozen concussions, mostly in football, but also in mountain biking, and sailing, and basketball, several other things. And I had never had a spinal x-ray, which seems very odd. Well, we were doing it after hours, and he's doing the x-rays himself. And he poked his head out of the room when he was looking at him, and he said, "Jeff, have you ever had neck surgery?" I said, "No." And he was like, "Oh, interesting," and closed the door and went back into the room. And I wondered what was up. He came out and he said, "You have some spinal deformities." Over time, I learned that I have 4 major spinal deformities. So the bottom of my skull did not form correctly, and my C1 is fused to my skull, the top vertebrae, or it was. The C2 and C3 are fused together in the back, which means there's a little bone in the front of your neck called the odontoid that sticks up. That's been pulled back because of that second fusion, which means my brainstem had to grow around it. So my brainstem is kinked, and it cuts off a fluid, cerebral spinal fluid that you need there a little bit. And then I have partially formed cervical ribs, so it means ribs coming off of your neck. And then I have a fully formed L6, which your vertebrae are supposed to only go down to L5. That's supposed to be your last vertebrae, and I have another one. I have an L6. So I didn't know about any of these at all. These are congenital from birth. So it was just an accident waiting to happen, essentially. And I've done a lot of crazy stuff. I've done skydiving, mountain climbing, whitewater rafting, running with bulls, scuba diving, alligator wrestling, and I hadn't had trouble. Not in a major way. I had trouble. I just didn't attribute it to that because I didn't know. So we start trying adjustments, and I tried a lot of unique adjustments. At this time, I had tried right in there somewhere. I tried painkillers because in football, in high school, I had a bunch of injuries. Busted up the shoulder really bad a couple of times, dislocated it, tore some stuff, broke some bones, and I got painkillers for it. I got Vicodin, and then it's one of those things, and I played on it. I kept playing on it, so it kept hurting because I kept being injured. And you grow, you need more, so you just take more and more Vicodin. And at one point, I think I was 17, somewhere in there, I took a 30-day supply of Vicodin in 3 days and realized that I was probably had a problem, a growing problem, and so I just stopped. I stopped taking all painkillers. I didn't take ibuprofen. I didn't take aspirin. I didn't take Advil for years until this incident in Africa. And I went into the hospital at one point because when I first went in, they kept offering me painkillers, and I kept saying no, I want to fix the problem, and I had a lot of disagreements with my doctors over that. I don't even like to call them my doctors. They're someone else's doctors now, and I didn't want to take the painkillers, but at a certain point, it just breaks you down. It just wears you down. And I said, fine. Like, I need the pain to go away because the pain is interfering with my ability to think and try to problem solve this problem. Like, how can I get better? And so they wanted to give me some pills. I'm like, no. Like, just make the pain go away now so I can problem solve, and maybe we'll do pills later or whatever. But I just want 1 day without pain. And so they gave me 2 injections, and they told me that no matter what kind of pain I had, this would make the pain go away. And they gave me the 2 injections and then told me to sit down for 20 minutes. And I sat down for 20 minutes, and it didn't affect it, didn't change it at all. And they said they had no idea what to do. So I left, and driving home, I was already having some issues driving, but driving home I was very unsteady. So the drugs were definitely affecting me, but they weren't affecting the pain. As it turns out, that C1 had either broken loose or was never fully attached. We don't have x-rays from before. It had slid to the right, and it slid into my brainstem. So the odontoid in the front is too close to the brainstem, and it's interfering with the flow of the fluid, but then the C1 is now pressing up against that brainstem and causing brain damage. So, and that's, I started to lose long-term memory as well, which the first incident of realizing you're losing long-term memory was, for me, extremely scary. It was the word peace, and P-I-E-C-E. And I looked at it. I was at a business meeting, a personal development meeting, and I asked someone what it was. And they thought I was joking. And I was like, no, I'm not joking. I'm like, what is it? And they still thought I was joking. And I had to really insist that I didn't know what it was. And that's when I realized that I should know what it is. Because I've always had a high IQ, very high reading comprehension level. And I had already been having trouble reading at this point. And I realized that I didn't know what this word was that I knew I must have known at one time. And that was a very scary moment, because when you have long-term memory loss, you don't know what you've forgotten. How would you know? Because you've forgotten it. So it starts to make you question everything in life. And overall, I'd already been questioning my identity. A year into this thing, I had defined myself before that as an intelligent adventurer. And now I couldn't walk for very far. I actually couldn't walk all the way across the house without taking a break. And I remember one day going to get the paper, which is just, you have to walk down the driveway, which isn't very long, and then across the street, and then back. And I had to stop at the end of the driveway going there, and got the paper, and came back, and I had to stop again, and then come back into the house. So I had to have 2 stops to walk across the street. So there was no adventuring happening, and I was no longer intelligent. My IQ dropped well below average. So all of that, I eventually found a chiropractor that she pushed the bone out of my brainstem literally, and then it would slide back into place. And for quite a while, we did 6 adjustments a week, and I've used some other unique neck things for adjustments to help restore part of the lordotic curve, which is the curve you're supposed to have in the neck, which I probably have never had, but it helps the stability and a bunch of other unique things in that direction. And then also my digestive system was completely destroyed, and my immune system was completely messed up. And I've made a lot of diet adjustments and tracking to help fix all of that. But during all of this, the pain wouldn't go away. Right? So I still have a headache now from December of 2015. And that is not the longest that I've heard of. So the spinal deformities that I have are technically called Klippel-Feil syndrome, or Klippel-Feil syndrome. People pronounce it differently, KFS. And I talked to a woman online in one of the KFS groups that I'm a part of, and she has had a headache at that time. That was over a year ago. At that time, she had had a headache constantly for over a decade. So it definitely happens. And then it's a unique form of migraine because you have something pressing on the brainstem. So the painkillers just wouldn't work. I didn't want to be on them in the first place. So I tried to explore a lot of other options. I tried to ignore it. I'd already, before this, a few years before this, I'd done a year of meditation training with an Ashaya monk, and I tried that, and it just wouldn't work. The pain would just kick me out of the meditation. It was way too intense. And during my explorations, what I eventually found, one of the things I wanted to try, was Vipassana, which is designed around the original ideas, the original practice of Buddha. And it was a 10-day silent retreat I decided to go to. I mean, it was going to be extremely painful, but every day it was extremely painful, so nothing unique there. And I went to it, and the 3rd day, I just couldn't stop tearing. I was sitting and I was meditating, and I was sitting in a chair because my spinal deformities wouldn't allow me to sit in the normal position that everyone else sits in, but I got clearance for all of that. And I'm sitting there, and tears are just running down my face, and I just can't stop. I'm not sobbing, which is good because sobbing hurt. And I went to ask, I don't think I can do this. And the guy is very, very cliche meditation instructor from India. And I'm sitting in front of him asking this question. And he looks at me and he says, "The pain will get worse." And there's a weird stop. I'm like, okay, that's not, this is what I'm thinking. That's awesome. And then he said, "And then it will get better." And he was telling me that you don't want to meditate like most people do, or what you normally do, and how you need to approach the pain in a specific way. And I talked to several other people about this now. But I started working on that and had a major breakthrough once I started doing that in those 10 days. and it completely changed my experience of pain. So I still feel the pain signal. The pain signal is still being sent to my brain, but I feel it as a signal rather than a disturbing pain. And that is a difference, because I don't even want to cut off that signal. My health can deteriorate pretty quickly if my spine becomes highly misaligned. So I need to know when things are going wrong. That's the purpose of pain. Pain is extremely useful for that. It's good, and to a large extent, which is kind of weird to say, but we need it to survive. There are rare children that are born without nociceptors, those are your pain receptors, and they die really young because they can't tell if they break a bone, they can't tell if they're sick, they can't tell if they get burned, they can't tell if they've been cut, they can't tell these things. So pain is designed to keep you alive. It's just if you have severe chronic pain, something's gone wrong, and if you can fix the medical issue that's there, which you should always be working on, if you can fix it, great, you can make the pain go away that way. But if you can't, then you have to learn a method to handle and manage the pain so that it doesn't completely distract you and you can still do things. And essentially what this is doing is you have a phenomenal field, right? Your field of experience, and everything is in this, all of the physical things that you're sensing, but also all of your concepts, even abstract concepts like justice. Whatever is popping up in your phenomenal field as important is there for a reason, and pain is one of these. But that pain can become such an important sensation that it just grows in your awareness until you can't focus on anything else, you can't do anything else. It essentially makes you completely non-functional as a person and destroys your life. So what we need to do is reprogram how we're processing and how we're perceiving that pain. And after all of my different experiences with meditation, I came up with something that I call the Just Meditation Matrix now. And there's 4 main areas of meditation. Right? You can either concentrate or not concentrate. You can either feel sensations or you can use your imagination. Right? So this creates 4 quadrants of different types of meditation you can do. And a lot of people try to do some sort of mantra meditation or visualization meditation for pain. And this will only work for very low levels of pain where you can essentially ignore it. But for high levels of pain that are very persistent, especially, it will not work. Because as soon as you get tired, bam, you're gonna be all about the pain again. That's gonna be your full awareness. As soon as something goes wrong, as soon as you're stressed, something like that, the pain is gonna pop up at the least convenient moment. Because you can only ignore pain when you're strong, when you're aware, and when you're not stressed. So it's not going to work essentially. What we need to do is focus on the pain itself, voluntarily lean into it, and explore that sensation. This helps us differentiate the sensation, tear it apart, essentially, in our awareness and our feeling. And then your brain somehow rewires, which is something like when your neurons connect to form a long chain. This is how we develop all of our skills, all of our cognitive abilities, including the feeling of pain. It reaches out on both ends with dendrites and axon terminals to connect to other neurons to form this chain. And when that neuron chain fires, there's glial cells in your brain. They sense that and they wrap around the neurons. They form myelin, and this forms a myelin coating or a myelin sheath that essentially acts as insulation. So the more times this fires, and the harder it fires, the more times it can fire, and the harder it can fire. And then, when it's really coated in this myelin sheath, it wants to fire on its own. It's almost like its own little personality in your head that wants to fire. This is how addictions work. And the same thing can happen with pain, and you almost can't stop it because you're having really intense sensations of pain repeatedly. So these neurons are becoming reinforced and it's driven in there. Some people get physically out of pain and then keep feeling the pain for a while because the brain has to rewire itself so you don't feel it. What we're doing by voluntarily leaning in and exploring this pain through a certain process that I plan on leading people through is making that rewiring happen now. on our time, so that while we're still in the pain, so that we can sense the signal but not feel it as a traditional version of pain. Now, my idea is to help other people with this, and I've had a lot of success myself on this, and I teach English online now. I do public speaking events. I'm speaking at a Harry Potter festival this summer. I'm giving 4 speeches for 15 minutes in front of hundreds of people. I just did a speech last week on alligator wrestling and the meaning of life. I'm helping out with a homeschool group. I run a writing group for them. I have another writing group that I participate in, and I do a lot of other activities. I still have some limits. I probably can't go horseback riding anymore, although I'll probably try it here soon just to see. I think trotting is going to give me an issue, but I think I'll be able to walk and maybe canter. So an experiment to try for sure. But it's not because of the pain necessarily. It's because it throws off my spinal alignment, and then that declines my health itself. So the pain aspect I've learned to manage very well, simply as a signal rather than as this horrible experience that takes over your full awareness. And I would like to share that with people, and I need to figure out how to do that, the skill of how to do this. So I'm working on arranging these things. I joined a business group called Founder Co., which is all about starting up businesses. And it's a really supportive environment, which is great. People are working in all kinds of different businesses. There's a guy developing a mask that recycles the hot air that we breathe out for people that work in freezers, and he's just launching that product, and people are liking it, and all sorts of other stuff. But I need feedback on what could potentially work here. So I'm going to ask a series of questions below this, and I'm hoping that you'll fill them in. If some questions seem redundant, you can just give short answers. If you want to give really long answers, that is fine too, and I appreciate it. But I really need to know things like, how long have you had your pain? How much is it interfering with your life? How much time are you willing to put into change it? How much money are you willing to put into changing it? Because that has to fuel the rest of the business so that I can teach more and spread more, than exactly how I'm going to structure that. Have you tried meditation before? Has it been effective? Has anything been effective for your pain? And there'll be a series of questions below. I'd really appreciate it if you answer those. Let me know. And then also, if you want to include in there, and I'll include a section for this, anything else that you can recommend, thoughts, ideas, something that may be helpful that you have thought of how I could possibly do this. So I appreciate everything. My name is Jeff Martin, and this website that I recently bought is called meditatewithjeff.com, and I'll be seeing you next time. I appreciate the time.